Are you thinking of leaving corporate, but too afraid to make the move? Have you already escaped corporate, but are finding it hard to run your dream business? Are you wasting valuable time by attempting to figure challenges out on your own? We have created a podcast for corporate escapees running their own business. This is the Corporate Escapees Podcast by Build, Live, Give. We bring you first-hand experiences of guests going through many of the struggles you face each and every day as a corporate escapee. We get real with no corporate BS. And now, over to your host, Paul Higgins.
Hello and welcome to Corporate Escapees, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of people who are successfully running their own businesses, hearing their war stories and motivations for making the jump from their corporate gig. I'm your host, Paul Higgins, and our guest today is someone who had a very successful career in retail. She traveled the world and she was exposed to some wage disparity. Finally, her values were no longer aligned to a company and she left. She started a community to help unlock the potential of women in business. Now it's over 160,000 strong and it's growing, and she shares some great wisdom within this show. Now I'll hand you over to Lisa Sweeney from Business in Heels. Welcome, Lisa Sweeney from Business in Heels, to the Corporate Escapees podcast, brought to you by Build, Live, Give. So we're going to get to know a lot about you today, Lisa, but why don't we just start with something that your friends or family would know about you that our listeners wouldn't?
Yeah, thanks very much, Paul. It's great to be on your show. So let me tell you a little bit about me. I live in the country on a property, and whilst I represent Business in Heels, more often than not I'll be found in gumboots wandering around the property, where I have horses which I ride, and because we live down near the coast, in my spare time I can also be found trying to slip into a wetsuit and get on a surfboard. So there are a few little hidden facts about me.
Excellent. And for those, I know we've got a global audience, but you're down on the near Torquay, is that right?
Yeah. So I'm right near the Great Ocean Road. So anybody who's not that I would ever surf at Bells Beach, but anyone that knows a bit about surfing knows it's a great surf spot. And yeah, it's something that I aspire to do better than I currently do.
Excellent. Yeah, well, my son's just got into it, but unfortunately we live in Bayside in Melbourne, and it's a long drive. So no doubt Saturday morning I'll be going down the freeway that way to find a way for it.
Yes. And quite often you get there and it's not that good. So it's a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, great. And I know that you had a fantastic career in retail before you've launched the Business in Heels, which we'll go into more detail on the Business in Heels in a moment. But just take us through a bit of your corporate escapee story.
Yeah, sure. So my background's retail and buying, and so I work for big companies like Target Australia and Spotlight and Best and Less, where I manage big teams doing buying. So I was very lucky to be able to travel around the world a lot, a little bit like George Clooney in Up in the Air, and get to go to many interesting countries, running both licensing for Target, toys and leisure. I also bought menswear, and so I've travelled to a number of countries like China, Bangladesh, India, Cambodia, where we sourced a lot of the product, as well as going to, Europe and London and America, and where we were actually cutting a lot of the deals. So I've been lucky enough to see the world from many different angles, and I guess that in part was why I've been so interested in such a global business going forward, and that, in part it got to a point though for me where my values didn't align with the companies anymore, and I wasn't feeling that I could make a difference, which was probably the reason why I decided to escape.
Yeah, and how long had that value misalignment been there?
Oh, look, probably only about 6 months or so. I had always, had very strong emotional connections with the companies that I worked for, in the feeling that we could carve out and make a difference. And, over my different times in corporate, I was lucky enough to, create some really pivotal moments. I implemented a lot of the setup in Bangladesh, and, was one of the first to scope out Cambodia and go to a number of different places and create a number of different things for the companies. And so, that alignment was always there. And it was only probably, as I said, in the last 6 months that I felt that, there was a misalignment, and that came with the whole management shake-up, as many of us have seen, I'm sure, in corporate, which involves not only just one person changing up, but usually the major teams within the corporation. So that often comes with a big value changer.
Yeah, and in looking back in hindsight, would there be anything different you'd do in the way that you did make the exit from corporate, or would you do it the exact same way you did it?
Look, I often think, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but, often the experience you have all the way through is necessary to take you to the place you're at today. And so, whilst perhaps there are things that you would like to have done differently, I don't think I would, probably.
Yeah, and what were some of the key fears that you had when you first left?
Look, I think there was a whole change of, who am I? Who's this person now? Now I don't have this title. Have I somehow changed being that person? Am I somehow less than I was? And it took me probably about 6 to 12 months to be really comfortable in my own skin of the person with all the capabilities that I know that I have. And then, within the business, there's all that fear of, well, what am I starting, and will I be successful? And, you're bowling up to people and saying that you can do this sort of stuff, and, can I really do it? All that sort of thing. So will I look silly? Am I going to, end up falling flat in my face? That sort of stuff.
Yeah, and what sort of spurred you to go and do what you did?
Look, I think, if so, I might have to take you on a little bit of a journey backwards. So,
Yeah, sure.
understanding that I have a buying background, probably about 20, 22 years ago, not that I'm counting, I was in China sourcing leggings, and I'm responsible for probably one of the uglier fashion trends where women, the louder the printed legging, printed leggings and jumpers, the louder the printed legging, the better it sold. And so I was in China sourcing this back when China was very communist, and I was in the back blocks of China in a number of the factories, and I was chatting to a number of the people there via an interpreter when I really learned about the one-child policy and what it was causing families to do in China. And so in China, people's retirement policy is their child, and because you're only allowed to have one child, people are being forced to choose between boys and girls, and they honestly didn't believe that girls would ever earn the same amount as boys. And that was the first time I'd come across any sort of sexism to that level. And as a result, girl children were being abandoned all over China. And I was really horrified. And I guess that, started me on a journey of, well, are women really less than equal? And, of course, as, it's more exposed today, we know that, through pay gaps and all the rest of it, women aren't equal. And so, in part, what we're doing is trying to narrow some of the gaps. So women starting businesses are the fastest growing part of the economy, and yet 7 out of 10 are destined to fail. So part of what we're doing is trying to actually arrest some of that decline.
And what do you see as some of the key reasons why 7 out of 10 fail?
A lot of it is that people don't know what they don't know. Loads of people are starting businesses and they've got real skills and uniqueness. And for whatever reason, coming out of corporate, a lot of people, as you would know, have amazing skills, but then they hit their own business and suddenly they think they need to be master of everything, and they feel that they have to stand on their own 2 feet and not ask for any help. And quite frankly, very few people are so well-rounded that they can do everything by themselves. And so it's about then, forming partnerships and collaborations and joint ventures with people. And not everybody does that. And so, we see a lot of people not asking the questions, not even knowing the questions to ask. And so, inevitably, a lot of them get exhausted and fail.
And who was some of the people that helped you along your journey?
Look, I've been very lucky, and I guess, to connect with a number of key people through retail and through my previous connections who've strongly supported me, and they're the sort of sounding boards, I guess, where you can go out and have a really great chat to them. I have a business partner, so when we set up Business and Heels, I went into it with a business partner, and she and I started in Target at day one together in the buying office. So we've known each other for a long time. And, we've seen each other, have children, the families are very close. And so, as far as having a person to bounce stuff off, it's been really pivotal. So, a number of, I guess you could call them mentors, but as much as I use them as a mentor, they bounce things off me too. So it's kind of a really nice synergistic relationship with a number of people that I have, as well as obviously my business partner. And then there's just, loads of people that I connect with all the time. And you learn something from everyone, like yourself. You and I had a great conversation when we first met.
Yeah, and no doubt with 160,000 members or more, and we'll get to that in a moment. You must have a lot of people tapping you on the shoulder to be a mentor to them. How do you make that decision around who do you mentor and who do you don't?
Yeah. So trying to choose what you do with your time, I guess. I mentor a number of people, but I haven't had to say no to too many people. I guess it's just about picking and choosing, and there might be somebody more suitable, and quite often I'll hook them up with somebody who's got more of the key skills that they might want than necessarily me. So it's not always about me. I'm often the connector.
Great. And approaching you, what's some advice on people that are just leaving corporate now and they're looking for a mentor, they're looking for someone that's further down the path? What's a good way of finding them and approaching them?
Look, really, it's about getting out there and getting connected. So, one of the key things we encourage people to do is get out to events and meet other people face to face, where they start with it, through connecting them through social media. So it could be through LinkedIn that you search out a number of people, or whether you just start going to events in your local area and start getting connected. They're really good techniques to start the ball rolling. But one of the key things strategically to do before that is actually trying to identify, what it is that you're really good at, and then what sort of people do you need around you to make a business successful. So for argument's sake, say you're great at marketing, then you wouldn't go seek out somebody else who's fantastic at marketing necessarily. You might go and seek out people who understand finance and cash flow and other things that maybe you're not strong at, as well as maybe someone who's done what you're trying to do before. So, to try and get, one mentor is never enough. So trying to find other people that you can get into that sort of circle that you need to succeed with.
Okay, well, the next section's the build section. So, as I said, over 160,000 members. You may tell me that you've even got more than that now. But what do you say when someone comes up to you and says, Lisa, what do you do for a living?
Yeah. So what I say is we work to unlock the potential for women in business. And as I said before, women in business is the fastest growing sector. And so what we work to do is through education, marketing and connection, help business people create that pipeline of clients they need to be successful.
Great. And you sort of talk about those three pillars, education, marketing and connection. Just give me a bit more of an insight into what each of those mean.
So, from the point of view of education, we have a number of different programs. It starts off trying to take people from being unconsciously incompetent to at least consciously incompetent. So understanding the questions they need to ask in lots of different segments. So we've got education that stems from, what do you do legally to start off with? Maybe how do you get started with social media? How do you get the confidence to get out network? So that's kind of like our base level of education. And then we've got a number of programs that actually, people can sign up for a year, and it takes them through a course of how to create that pipeline of clients. And, strategically, how do you get those collaborators around you? Because it's much easier to work with partners than it is to try and chase down individual customers. So if you can get partners who've got the same clients as you, then you'll be much more successful faster than if you try and have a scattergun approach to chasing down customers.
Yeah, and just on that partners, I know that a lot of our members talk about the great conversations. So they'll meet someone and they'll say, yes, we're a great fit, etc. And then, there's just silence. And normally it's silence on both occasions. It doesn't get any traction. What's some advice on how do you get the right amount of traction on partnerships?
Look, you've really got to start off and give, so it's not about putting something out there and listening to the crickets. It's about you giving first to get something back ultimately. And so say you meet someone, you think they'd be a great partnership with you, then you understand you need to have a conversation to understand what they need, and then you give them something that will help them. So it could be a connection, it could be a tool that you use, it could be, some sort of help with marketing. Once you started doing that and they see that you're genuine, then they'll probably do something to reciprocate. And then you kind of go another step and maybe you try their services and let them try yours. But unless you actually start off the giving, nothing will happen. Absolutely. So you've got to be prepared to put your money where your mouth is, really. And we have a whole course about how do you have a coffee date and actually get to a sensible outcome so that people start getting that traction. That's part of our actual business building program.
Great. And your ideal client, obviously you've talked about, the growth in women and startup businesses, but sort of just describe a little bit clearer your ideal client.
So our ideal client is someone who's running a small to medium business. It's female. And they're usually around that bracket between 35 and 55. And mostly, they will have had some traction in their business, and they'll generally we get some startups, but mostly people who somewhere been in business somewhere between 2 and 10 years.
Great. And how did you? I know you talked about this great story from 22 years ago with China, but how did you come about to picking that's the right ideal client for you?
Look, it's and I'm sure but targeted audiences are far more effective than having a scattergun approach. And when we first started, I'm sure we had much more of a scattergun approach. So there's a degree of trial and error that went into this. And so we found, we could go for all women in business, but what we decided to do was actually narrow it down to really focus on the people that were coming to our events regularly and the people we were constantly connecting with. And so that was the final decision that we made.
Okay, great. And around your business model, you sort of talked about the 3 pillars: education, marketing, and connection. Yeah, just how does the business model work?
Yeah, so a big part of it, and we didn't really talk about marketing, but a big part of how we make money is to do with our partnerships. So we've formed partnerships at you've mentioned that we connect 160,000, but actually we operate in over 50 connected groups, and we have 25 branch directors who are operating in these groups that are geographically located. And we have locations spanning all over Australia. And then we've got some international ones in UAE, Nepal. We're recently setting up in the Philippines, and we're just playing around with Serbia at the moment. So, so we've got people in locations. They form partnerships. They run events locally. So we get a revenue stream through from the partnership. We get a revenue stream through from our memberships, and then we get a revenue stream through from running various events. Generally, we run more evening type networking events, and at the bigger level we've just done our first business solutions summit, which was a whole day affair with Naomi Simpson talking. We ran workshops where people could try and solve those pain points of things that are keeping them away at night. So, with a connection of 160,000 people, we can offer a number of marketing solutions for people, because many people have got great ideas and no one knows about their business. So one of the biggest pain points for small business is how do I get the message out? And so in part we work with people, both a mixture of corporates and smaller business, to help them get their messages out.
Yeah, and I know marketing is such a of what seems to be such a pain point at the moment. There's so many options. You talk to different marketers, they'll all give you a different opinion in some sense. What are some of the key things that you're seeing working well, especially more for the smaller clients that you've got, or
Yeah,
smaller
sure.
community members? What are you seeing that's working really well?
Look, social media has been, a gold mine. It's been a leveler for business. And so small business can compete equally and often better than big business on social media. And so utilising a lot of those platforms is how we've grown. And today, with constant changes that Facebook are making, and after all, they connect 1.6 billion,
Yes.
as well as, people like LinkedIn, if you can be a part of a group as opposed to spending huge amounts of money on your page, you actually can get really good traction because groups where people engage in chatting. So, you can put constant comments onto things and get more noticed through being in a group, which is free, than you can on your page. And, it doesn't cost you a whole lot of marketing dollars.
Yeah, and I know that, there's some people say, no, you should have a completely independent platform. Other people say, no, you should be, just go where the audiences are, like Facebook, for example. What's your opinion on that?
I think it really depends on your business and what you're trying to achieve. If most people are using their websites almost like a business card at the moment, and there's a lot of effort to get people out of social media to a website, and that's going to cost you money. So it really depends on what you want to do with it. Is it, and what your, do you need big numbers, or do you need fewer numbers, and have you got a higher ticket price? So it depends a lot on your business. If you need big numbers, then you're almost better off building it all into social media,
Yeah, look, it's
because that's
yeah,
where the people are.
yeah. Great point. And as far as for you, as you sort of scale this, how do you continue to improve the profitability of your business?
Yeah, look, one of the originally we started off with free membership, and I guess that was a great way to get large numbers quickly. But just by adding, so I think our base membership's $30 now, and people get, their profile on our website, which is like a LinkedIn for women, and they get access to all our free education. They get discounts at our events. So just something very simple, like a simple upsell, has been, added quite a bit of profitability to the business.
Great. And as far as the source of business, you talk about social media. I get the sense has been a really good catalyst for you for attracting more females. But what else has worked really well for you in attracting a huge audience that you have?
It's networking at its best. It's often people, saying to other people that they should check out Business in Heels. And on the flip side, it's been our content strategy. So we have a very productive content strategy. Every week we're doing free webinars. We have tips. We've got a blog every week. We've got a podcast channel. We do Facebook Live videos. So we've got a fairly heavily big content strategy where we're giving away a lot of stuff free. And then, it's the people seeing the value in that and then bringing their friends to it.
Great. And who does all that content creation? Is that something you and your business partner do, or do you have partners that help you do that?
It's a combination of. So some of our partnerships support it. We work with the Ambitious Entrepreneur podcast, and we have a lot of our ambassadors and our national marketing partners participate in our Facebook Lives and all the rest of it. But we have an in-house team that also delivers quite a bit of this too. And then we have our 25 branch directors who are also running their own bits of content locally and interviewing their own partners and sharing their own stories. So you can imagine there's quite a lot of activity happening,
Great.
as well as running events.
Yeah, and as well as looking after the farm, the team. How big is your direct team?
Well, so we have, as I said, 25 branch directors, but it's a very sort of flat structure. So, we have they, ring in when they need help generally. And we generally have conference calls. So, we don't have, loads of general managers or anything like that in between. There's probably an in-house team of 3, plus my business partner and I, plus a couple of other people that we contract in and out, as well as them. But they are as much part of the business and driving ideas and other things as we are. So.
Great. And I'm assuming your work locationally independent?
Yes.
Yeah. So you're not in an office. You're effectively
no.
Yeah. So what are some of the pros of that, and what are some of the cons of having your team, geographically dispersed?
The con is at the moment, due to the time zones, we can't actually have the whole team online at once, which means that we're often duplicating. It's difficult to create a consistent culture when you can't put the team in one place at one time. But also because we do go across so many different nationalities, the culture varies. But on the flip side, we've adopted some really cool technology like Zoom that we're using today, and other things. We've even done networking events online globally, and we did some online virtual reality networking. So we've been pushing the boundaries because of the whole online component. So yeah, it's been that's one of the pros.
Great. And do you see how far away is that it will be more in a virtual world than a physical world? I'm sure it's going to always be a combination, but how far away are we? I've heard people sitting in a concert, and you're in your lounge room, but it's like you're sitting in front of Pink, as an example.
Look, I think there's always a place for face-to-face, and I see a lot of that. You can't hide behind your computer. But interestingly enough, the world that we're in, virtual reality world, the 3 women that have run that, and they've run it successfully for 5 to 6 years, and they have the contract to teach English to the whole of Italy. So some of them, as business partners, have never physically met. So
right.
There you go.
Right. So it can work. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. And just, the last question in this build section is some of the biggest challenges that you face at the moment running a business in Heels.
Probably the biggest one is around noise around communication. At the moment, we're facing challenges all over the place from the point of view of declining impact of email marketing, huge amount of noise on social media, constantly changing algorithms from platforms that you can't control. So trying to work out how to cut through that as best you can, and without constantly duplicating the workload, is probably the biggest strategy, challenge.
And how are you going about solving that?
At the moment, we've been working on a cool strategy to get, Messenger. It's been a really big part of that. So there's a number of newer ways you can engage with people through Messenger, which is getting much better cut through. And going back to some, old-fashioned, like just picking up the phone, because people are just not reading emails more and more.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I know, I've got lucky enough to have a virtual assistant that does all my emails, so I never once go into my inbox. So if she doesn't think it's right for me, unfortunately, I don't get to see it. or maybe fortunately, I don't get to see it. Excellent. Well, look, just before we go into the next section, I'd just like to mention our business quiz, which helps corporate escapees, just like Lisa, to build, live and give. You answer questions using a cool bot. So very much like the messenger bot that Lisa just spoke about, we've got a great bot on our website. And once you've done that, you can either get your responses emailed to you, or you can book a meeting with me. So just go to buildlivegive.com and you can take the quiz today. So the next section is the live section, Lisa. So what are some of the daily habits that you do every day to help you be successful?
Well, this is not for everyone, so I just want to preface that. So usually I start the day at about 5 a.m. because I'm a morning person. And after doing about an hour or 2 hours on the computer with a lovely cup of coffee. I then go and do some exercise, and between those two, it's a really great way to set the day up. And at that time, nobody's calling me, so it's fantastic. So it's like, private time to actually get something done.
Brilliant. And are you still brave enough to surf this time of year?
No.
No.
Even with my winter wetsuit on, it's very cold.
Yes, no. I definitely leave that to my younger son.
Yeah.
And as far as your partner, Steve, your husband, what would you like to say to him when he listens to this podcast about the support he's giving you through this journey?
Oh, look, my husband's been wonderful, a huge advocate. As a result of my journey, he's been going on his journey as well. He's a content writer, and he's got more and more involved with, obviously, networking, and works with a huge number of people now on that score, as well as helping us from the point of view putting together a lot of our content. So he's a huge advocate, and I really appreciate his unwavering support.
Brilliant. And the next section's the give section. So what's a cause or a community you're passionate about, and why?
Yeah, well, obviously, as I've mentioned, I'm very passionate about women's equality. And so we know that women aren't equal in pay in corporates, but a lesser known fact is that 45% of women are retiring into poverty, which is just a terrible fact. And a lot of this is due to divorce, and a lot of women at the time of divorce not taking any super. They often take the house and the kids and aren't aware of, or not thinking longer term, and suddenly they've got the kids off their hands, but they're down the track. And many of them say to me, I'm going to be working into my 70s because I just don't have enough money to live on. And then, so there's a whole piece there around financial literacy for women and women taking their fair share. And so, part of what we're working to do is to try and reverse the number of people that are then going under. So many of them then set up businesses after they've left corporate that don't succeed, and they're not able to sell them. So part of the strategies we're putting in play at the moment is, how would I exit my business? What do I need to reverse engineer to make my business successful enough to exit? And then, from a different point of view, as I mentioned earlier, we're pushing into countries like the Philippines. And we have at the moment a Philanthropino project going. So in the Philippines, there's a huge number of very well-educated women that are working as virtual assistants online. But a lesser-known fact is that 3,000 women leave the Philippines daily looking for work. Many of them doctors, engineers, highly educated women, who often then end up trapped in awful situations in maybe the UAE, where their passports are taken away, in menial sort of jobs. And many of them leave their children behind because it's the only way they can get money to support the families. So there's 1 million kids growing up in the Philippines at the moment without their mothers. So in part, what we're working to do there, and we've got the most awesome branch director on Martine, who really gets, as an entrepreneur, running a business. So what we're doing is a number of workshops where we're working to upskill the virtual assistants, many of whom have side hustles but not really serious businesses, to get them developed up to serious businesses enough where they can start employing other people locally, which will then create more jobs and slowly arrest this departure. So people here can get involved with that, and a number of people have already donated some money where it allows the VAs that can't afford it to go through the workshops and learn what they need to learn, so that hopefully, as I said, they can start the ball rolling to get their businesses properly set up.
That's excellent. Look, the Philippines is very close to my heart. My team are all based there, and we've helped clients for many years. So I think that's a brilliant initiative. So well done. The last section is the action section. So I'll just ask you some questions with some quick fire responses. So the first one is, what's your top 3 productivity tips?
Yep. Okay. I delegate a lot of my emails, and I try to handle everything only once. Doesn't always work, but if that's the intention. And then I focus on what's important to me, not what's urgent for others.
Great, excellent. And you mentioned Zoom before, but what are some of the other apps or technologies that you use to help run your business?
Yeah, we have a lot. Just a couple of the top ones. Calendly, I love. I don't know how many people, how much to and fro you have just to schedule a simple meeting nowadays. Hootsuite is great for scheduling into social media. We use Lively, which is a cool app that bridges a number of groups, but you have to own them. So when I stream Facebook Live, I can stream into numerous groups, which is another really cool thing. We use Active Campaign, which again is fantastic from the point of view of automating a whole lot of stuff, so you don't have to handle everything individually. Just rattles off a few.
Fantastic, brilliant. Well, with that many members, you need that technology to have the tight little team that you've got. And a favourite podcast or book, and why?
A few. Simon Sinek. I love the book about the why. I like listening to Tony Robbins. He's great. Obviously, the Business in Heels podcast. And another really good one, if people are trying to bridge into social media, is a Social Media Examiner. They do some really, really helpful podcasts.
Excellent. And some parting advice. What's some parting advice you'd love to leave the corporate escapee audience?
So if you're thinking about it and you haven't yet done it, give it a go. Just believe in yourself and live the dream.
Brilliant. Well, it was great hearing your awesome story, Lisa, coming from corporate escapee, like many of our listeners listening right now, to what you've created. And, even when you talked about what you're doing there in the Philippines, it just really aligns with what we believe in, which is build, live, give. And I think you're an excellent proponent of that. And you can find out more about the brilliant work that Lisa and her team are doing at businessinheels.com. And also you can get in contact direct with Lisa at businessinheels.com. But thank you for being on the podcast and sharing your infinite wisdom.
Thank you so much for having me, Paul. It's been a real pleasure.
That was a fantastic interview by Lisa. And I just want to give you my quick 3 takeouts. So the first one is, how do you build a partnership by giving first? I thought she gave some brilliant insight into that. The second was, how do you find a mentor to surround yourself, and in particular get people to complement your key strengths? So that was the second point. And then the third point was a great example of giving, the work that Lisa and Business in Heels is doing to help Filipino women and to help them build businesses so families keep together, I think is a brilliant example of giving and something that's really uniting her community. So what did you think about this great interview by Lisa? What did you learn? I'd love to hear your insights. Just email me at paul@buildlivegive.com. Also, if you know someone else who could benefit from hearing this great episode, please share it with them. Just one insight could make a significant difference to them and their business. Also, don't forget you can do the business quiz on our website at buildlivegive.com.
Thank you for listening to the Corporate Escapees podcast, brought to you by the team at Build, Live, Give. If you found this podcast helpful, please share it with other corporate escapees. If you would like to join a community of like-minded peers, please visit www.buildlivegive.com. Until next time, thanks for listening and be brave.